everyone. I wanted to spend a quick few minutes talking about the stages of change coming from an addiction model. So, lots of folks are curious about themselves or their loved ones and where they stand in sort of their addiction or recovery process. So, there's different stages that indicate where someone is at in their change process. The first one is pre-contemplation. So this is where someone is maybe in some denial or where they don't recognize that, let's say, their drinking or substance use or gambling is a problem. So there's some denying. They can kind of turn the issue onto someone else. And this is usually when a person is not open to getting help or support. Next, if someone keeps kind of investigating, so and so is telling me my drinking is an issue. Should I look at this? Then somebody enters the next stage, which is contemplation. So this is when somebody recognizes, hey, you're right, like the alcohol is a problematic behavior. So this is when they start to consider a change. It doesn't mean that they launch into abstinence, but they start to consider a reduction or even taking a look at the behavior. So this is usually a time when people are starting to walk towards like therapy or, talking to their loved ones even more about the issue. Then is the preparation stage. So the preparation stage of change is when someone is preparing to reduce or abstain from the behavior. And they oftentimes do this in counseling or therapy. And then once they take action is the next stage of change. So we're thinking about it, we're preparing for the change, and then you're taking action, you're initiating the change process. Once somebody engages in that action mode for a couple of months in the recovery period, then they move towards a rebuild and then a maintenance. So when someone is in maintenance, it means that they are stabilizing in a change in which they've made. It doesn't always mean that they're done changing, but when they're in maintenance is sort of like when they can start to come out of survival mode and be more present with themselves. So the idea of maintenance is to maintain the changes and to start to think about what other changes, like working on your health or your mental health if addiction has been an issue, working on your finances or, finding meaningful employment, things like that. Then what happens is after a period of time in maintenance, people start to transition out of therapy, or therapy becomes more of a touch point as opposed to a regular thing. When someone's in like preparation action mode, usually therapy's a little more consistent and regular. Then what happens is if someone experiences a relapse or a slip at any point in time, and a slip is an isolated incident back into the problematic behavior or the ways in which they were operating in the past, relapse is kind of like a spiral. People stay in it a little longer. What happens is the relapse process does run the risk if somebody, let's say, gambles and wins, it runs the risk of sending them back to the first stage of change. So maybe they'll be like, wow, I won something. Is this really a problem? And then after playing for a couple days, a couple weeks, they're like, oh, wait, yes, this is a problem. So then they go back into the action stage of change if they choose to do so. So that's a little bit about the stages of change. Pre-contemplation, in a bit of denial. Contemplation, there's some awareness building. We have the prep, the action, the maintenance, and then maintaining the changes from there. I hope that was helpful to some folks. That's all for now.